All right. Welcome everyone to another edition of the Threecolts Founder Series. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Joe Abitbol, who's a remarkable entrepreneur who has built and sold not only one, but two products to Threecolts. Now, today's discussion will center around the first of these products, SellerLocker. We'll dive a little bit into his journey, his story, and ultimately his experiences with Threecolts and helping Threecolts build the most comprehensive marketplace management platform. So welcome to the show, viewers, and welcome, Joe. How you doing?
How's it going, Ken? Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you. You're looking good. I like the hairs. It's coming in nicely. Nice one. So I gave a little bit of a background about you to start, but it was very, very high level.
Sure.
Why don't you start by introducing yourself to the audience?
Definitely. So I've been in the e-commerce space for quite a while. I'm 27 years old now. Been in the e-commerce space since I was probably 16. First started a watch company with my father. Times were tough during that time, and everyone could use some extra cash. We started a small watch business, which got pretty big pretty fast. That kind of gave me that inspiration and motivation to get into e-commerce, where I got a entry-level job at a wholesale company called Equity Brands, and we scaled that company from primarily a wholesale company to a e-commerce giant, probably a top 10 in the 1P space, selling a lot of bestsellers, portable air conditioners, fans, heaters, under a lot of different names like Black & Decker, AT&T, Got Milk, managing thousands of different SKUs. So that happened over a pretty quick time, over the course of 5 years. And a lot of the problems in that business were challenging to solve with such a small team, which led me to developing solutions, and those solutions turning into businesses, which Threecolts did a good job acquiring.
That's it. Threecolts did a good job of acquiring. I like that point. So what would you say? Well, I guess if you're responsible for managing thousands of SKUs, right? At some point in time, you're gonna want some type of automation, some type of like software solutions to help you manage that, because that's a very complex catalog to deal with, right? Would you say those experiences directly drove you to start in SellerLocker?
Yeah. So my CEO is at that time, Michael, is and always will be extremely profit driven. And every time I would launch a product, he would be very on me to hit those profit margins by the end of the year. So if I'm expecting to bring in X, even of course, there's going to be things you can't expect. But if I'm off by 3 to 5% from my estimation, okay, Joe, I'm bringing in products under your direction, down to your management. How come profits are so low at the end of the year? Being extremely profit focused definitely led me directly to SellerLocker, which, as we know, is a reimbursement platform which helps recoup the funds that Amazon owes you. It actually all started, we had these air conditioners right now. They're huge, 42,000 reviews, best-selling air conditioners on Amazon. At that time, when we were just launching, probably 2 years in, we had 5 different models, but all of them were exactly the same size, just different power. And we had 5 different fees on every single one of those ACs. One was 15 with a solid, a 15 FBA fee with a solid profit margin, and the others were $30, $40, $50. So that was just like a clear, hey, if I'm able to go ahead and figure out how come there's such a discrepancy between 2 different FBA fee tiers, maybe that'll go ahead and add profitability. So figured out the Amazon calculator, figured out how it worked, opened up my very first case, and I believe we got like $56,000 back from Amazon there.
What?
And yeah, it was the first case ever that I ever opened for reimbursements, and it was a $56,000 win. And that just like got me crazy. Okay, now there's got to be more, and I got drunk on reimbursements, and obviously fast forward, we had a reimbursement company, but that led me to, okay, I got to put this on an Excel sheet, and now I got to automate it, and now maybe this is a business, and that one event just opened up my eyes to it.
That's very interesting. So I want to just probe a little bit because when you're hit with the equation of maximizing profits, right? There's so many cost vectors you could tackle, right? Why did you pick reimbursements and I guess fees as the problem to tackle?
So I can control cost. We can try to squeeze the factory for a point. Freight also same thing. We can't really negotiate with the freight forwarders. Advertising, we weren't really spending much because it was a seasonal product and it was hot outside, so there wasn't much I can cut there either. We were already running slim. Returns became the second business that we started, so I wasn't there yet. So it was almost like, okay, what is the biggest fee that I'm paying? So 15% fee with Amazon, you can't change. But that FBA fee is the only other factor where are we going ahead and either packaging our products efficiently to fit into the right tier, which we were. The other being, are these fees correct? And then the second I started looking into it, I saw a $30 difference per unit on the same exact item, just in a different power strength. So that just opened my eyes. And then once that opened my eyes, I found so many different scenarios, probably hundreds of SKUs within the 1,000 units in our catalog where there were discrepancies. And so then I just got, like I said, drunk on reimbursement.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Now, I've seen SellerLocker as a very beautiful tool. It definitely didn't look like that on day one, especially as how you describe your path to get it in the reimbursement space, right? So how did you go from, oh, wow, I've identified this problem, I've solved it with a manual intervention to the SellerLocker product we see today? What was that path like?
Sure. So I was driving home from work that day from the city. I actually got a ride with my uncle, which Isaac, and he runs on site. And I was telling him about this. We just won a crazy case. I won $56,000 from my boss. He's psyched. I mean, I didn't get that money, but it's a pretty cool story to tell somebody. He's like, "Hey, this sounds cool, Joe. Can you look at my Amazon account?" Because Isaac at that time had a shoe business. I said, "Okay." I dove into his account and I started finding discrepancies. And now Isaac keeps messaging me, "Hey, Joe, can you come back to the office? There's got to be more that you can help us find." And Michael's telling me, "Hey, Joe, there's got to be more." I'm walking around the office with like a ruler. I'm just measuring every, I'm putting sticky notes on there's thousands of products and there's sticky notes everywhere. And Isaac keeps messaging me in lunch, "Hey, could you just come back? There's got to be more." So it got a little crazy. And then I ended up going to shul that night, synagogue in the area around me, for prayers. And I bumped into someone who I thought was maybe a software developer and said, "Hey, people are driving me crazy." And then like Isaac told his friend about it. So now like everyone's texting me about this. And it was, I saw my friend Albert there and I said, "Hey, Al, you think you can build something?" And, we created a partnership and we started that business. In 9 months, it started like every business, on the drawing board. These are the things that I would probably want to see. And we got to work.
Nice. Okay. So you were booked and busy, and you're like, "Hey, look, I need to find a way of scaling this up with some type of technology." How come you chose not to go down, or how did you choose to go down the route of a software solution versus just like hiring more people and training more people to assist you in the process?
I mean, that's a good question. I think it's more scalable, obviously. It's back in the day, everything was done manually and even now from a case submission standpoint, to have that part of the business be manual, the pulling of the reports be manual, it just seemed like, why go backwards when you can be forward thinking with APIs and connections and all that stuff.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
I also another answer. I wasn't managing teams at that point. I was just, one guy by myself working as an e-commerce individual in that company, no experience managing teams and people. And it just made more sense to rely on tech versus, okay, now become a manager and manage dozens of employees. It got to that point, but it did. I wasn't ready at that point, perhaps also.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you had a full-time job with Equity Brands. You're starting this business, right? That must have been very challenging. Tell me about the early days, the sleepless nights that laid the foundation for building the
So I definitely lost a lot of hair from it. But yeah, I was also getting married at that time. It was all happening at the same time. Um, I'm always like a big believer in like you gotta find your why. Like why start a business? And for me, why start a business was, I wanted to be able to support for my family. I wanted to have an impact in the Amazon seller space. That was the start of the different Prosper shows and the speakers. And I always dreamed of having a solution that people would use. So I had a very strong, why. And then that just motivated me every single day. And it was a fun business at that time. You're giving people free money. So they love you for it. And everyone was loving me. I was going to around some of the sellers that I knew, and everyone's giving me high fives. Hey, thanks for that 10 grand you got me. Thanks for I was just constantly seeing all the people that I was helping recover money, friends and family and friends of family. So it was definitely exciting and motivating to start, but also challenging. But that why was extremely important for
product? Yeah, it's a very powerful why, and it from very early on, it sounds like you didn't have any issues with getting traction, right? Now, this sounds like a lot of that traction was coming from within your network, right? How did you take it beyond a solution that serves my friends and family to being like a mass market solution? What was that journey like?
Great question. So we started, so let's just say we put it together in June. Albert was working on it for about 6 to 8 months and testing it with a bunch of friends and family. And then we went to our very first Prosper show, which we kind of took like a loan to go and buy a booth and design a booth and go there. And then we had a booth. Nobody was really walking by our booth. What is SellerLocker? What does that mean? And there was an individual, his name was Reimbursement, and he got up on stage and his speech was about identifying profitability. And he literally just said, hey guys, if you want to maximize your profits this year, I beg you to look at your FBACs and start digging into them to uncover hidden profits. So everyone walked and he showed a bunch of examples on the screen, and we had no connection with him at that time. And everyone just left that speech inspired, thinking, hey, I got to go home and identify my FBAC discrepancies. And here we were standing in the aisle. Hey, we have a solution, and it's only a percentage of whatever you recover, and we can go back 18 months. And it was just we must have gotten at least 150 signups at that show. And then that just catapulted us. That put us on the map.
Wow, that's big time.
Thank you, Ray Herman. I don't know if you know about this, but thank you.
Did you work with Ray in any capacity going forward?
Yeah. And he ended up using it, and a great beta tester of different features. Always appreciated his feedback.
Nice. So, how would you say the product morphed, right? There's probably like an initial solution, and then there's where it is today, right? What was that? What did that look like? How did you go about evolving the product?
The biggest change, I would say, was when we started, everyone was extremely scared of Amazon at that time. The biggest fear and the biggest question was, are we allowed to have automated case submissions? Are we allowed to have VAs opening up cases? So we wanted zero problems with Amazon. So we, in the beginning, actually only displayed the data, and then the sellers themselves would open up cases. Okay. So it was a very cool, pretty looking software, and it would help the seller open up the case. And the seller would also have to bring the case ID back to the tool.
Yep.
The problem with that is that we were just constantly begging people, please open up cases, please open up cases. Case IDs were being copied and not pasted back, and we ended up just turning into policemen. So instead of, we were giving people back free money, and we weren't getting the credit for it. So the biggest evolve of the tool was when we finally hired VAs and really took the load off of sellers' plates. So we took off half to start, but at this point where it is now, it's a complete solution where connect, and you could potentially forget if all things are set up right.
Nice. That's pretty powerful. So far you've talked a lot about the rosy bits of starting a business, right? Right now, it sounds like, Joe, your story has had no potholes, no pitfalls in it. But surely, we know that running a business is not necessarily a linear progression, right? What would you say was the hardest thing, or some of the hardest things that you had to deal with while you were operating this business?
I mean, the hardest in the beginning was just the constant changes. You wake up one day and Amazon changed this policy, and that was making up a big portion of your revenue, or it was clarifying how this calculation makes sense. But this, like, the single biggest issue was definitely, Amazon one day waking up and thinking, hey, SellerLocker, it seems like you may have broken our policy, and they emailed thousands and thousands of our loyal customers saying, hey, you have to disconnect from SellerLocker. And this was definitely, like, I would say, the hardest stage of the business. A random Tuesday at 3:00, and Amazon blasts out to 6,000 people saying, hey, you're not allowed to use SellerLocker because they didn't even mention you guys broke a policy with no clarity, no nothing. And we had probably 3,000 emails saying cancel, 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 cancel. It was at that time a very family-oriented business, and it was extremely scary. We had to fix the problem right away, get back the loyalty from the customers. Our salesmen, one of them being my dad, had to call thousands of customers, and we were on a shot clock. We still have our monthly expenses, whether the revenue is there or not. We already have a scaled out team, and if Amazon pulls the connection on you, you lose everything. Yep. But we were able to obviously resolve that, fix our reputation with 80%, I would say, of our customers, and then build back a much more powerful tool by just, we built it once really strong in the beginning and added more features, but 4 years in to go back to the building blocks and strengthen those roots when you rebuild it the second time. And the tool's a lot more powerful because of it.
That's solid. That's very I like the determination there to not fold and to keep carrying on, right? That's not oftentimes, I mean, that tends to be the biggest differentiator between success and failure. What would you say got you to persevere, right? Because when Amazon comes for you, it could be like, oh man, the jig is up, right? Where did you find that energy to keep pushing forward?
So that first day was tough. Obviously, we were going crazy that first day. I mean, it goes back to what I said before. Why are we doing this? We're doing this for our families. We're doing this to have an impact. We made an impact for sure. None of us want to close shop. We all have bills to pay. It's a family-oriented business at that point. And we just got together and said, we're not stopping till we're back in business. And we pushed September, October, November, and then December. I think we even beat our prior before the issues month. December, we're already back in business and re-engaged with Threecolts for that acquisition. It took us 3 months. We got back in about 90 days.
Nice. Okay, so that's a good segue into your life with Threecolts, right? How did that relationship come to be?
So, I mean, I got a random email from someone named Yoda Yee. I don't even think Threecolts had like a signature at the bottom yet. It just, this said Yoda Yee at the bottom. Hey, are you interested in an acquisition? And, we were at all-time highs before that Amazon issue. And I said, I don't know who Yoda is. Who's Yoda? What's Threecolts? None of that, seemed legit at that time. But then during the issue, during the crux of that issue, I actually got a follow-up email from Yoda saying, hey, Joe, I just heard about what happened with SellerLocker. If there's anything that I can do, please let me know. Would love to help in any way that I can. So that was extremely touching, and it was nice. But again, I didn't know who he was. And then once we got back on our feet and we actually had a conversation on Zoom, I saw, hey, if I was ever thinking about an acquisition, this would be the company to potentially give it over to. So, that picked things up, and then saw him at the Prosper Show face to face. And a few months later, we ended up selling the company.
Oh, okay. So you weren't on the hunt for an exit at the time?
No, the stress of that close definitely instigated the thought of, hey, this is an industry that is great, the reimbursement space. I would definitely love to work with Amazon versus kind of sometimes against Amazon on the reimbursement side. So it started to make me think about an exit.
Okay. Did you you don't have to name names, but were there other partners you were considering selling to at the time?
Yeah, there was. I mean, people still try to buy it today, and I tell them, hey, I don't own it anymore. I got an email yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that proactiveness, that helpfulness that Yoda showed from the onset was kind of what helped you him earn your trust, right? Um, how would you say now? Let's move into the post-acquisition world, right? How is your experience with SellerLocker and with Threecolts in general post-acquisition? How has that been?
It's definitely awesome to have, systems in place and people to take on the load. Pre-acquisition is a lot, even though people are important, but there was a lot of importance on, hey, we have a great salesman or we have a great onboarder, and the process lived in the person versus taking the process out, strengthening it, and really you can now replace people at any given point. So it takes a lot of the risk out of the business, because even, things come up, employees step away from specific roles. Threecolts really showed me that, if you take the SLP out, you can really swap people in and out of positions, and that allows you to grow faster. When you're not reliant on people, rather a good product and a good process that allows you to scale faster, allows you to not have that many more risks in the business. So that was great work with Threecolts. Having, such a great name and a Threecolts name, we're also able to send customers, laterally from software to software. So it has allowed for growth. It has allowed for the name to go ahead and allow us to acquire more customers and do more things in the space.
That's solid. Do more things you certainly have done. But I guess that's something that we'll talk about in subsequent episodes. So how involved are you with SellerLocker today?
So, like I said before, now I never thought I'd actually be able to step away. But because we streamlined a lot of the communication, I have been able to go ahead and really rely on the team to take care of, at this point, I would say 95% of the tasks. There are customers that know that I sold, but still will text me on my phone and still will call me as if like I sold their invoice. What about this? But I'm not in the business anymore. Like they don't get it. But there are customers that will only call me regardless of how many times that I tell them that I sell. But besides that, mostly focusing on onsite.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to get your perspective on where you fit in the Threecolts jigsaw, right? Because Threecolts' goal, build the most comprehensive marketplace management platform, right? Where does SellerLocker fit within that story, within that narrative?
From a SellerLocker perspective, I think it's a great, the Threecolts is a great lead magnet, great way to bring people in so that they can get a taste of what we do. And it's a great way to earn trust from the seller. To give somebody free money is definitely attractive. So now they come into the Threecolts family and ecosystem, and then they're able to really learn, hey, they have a great solution here. I've done zero investment to Threecolts just yet. They've just given me free money so far, but I do trust them for that. Let me invest a little bit more of my time to learn more about the other solutions. A lot of times when we're selling products that have a price on it, you're not just asking them to pay the price of the software. You're also asking them to invest time learning your software so that maybe they can get value from it. So when you already got their trust that you built good solutions with a free money-giving SellerLocker type tool, you've kind of acquired their, you get their trust, and then they could potentially start looking at some of the other good solutions that we're also running and leading. And then they just become closer and closer and closer to the business, to the point where they're trusting us with all of their different types of needs because they know that we have a good solution and a good team running the business.
Yeah, that's very, very solid. That's very, very solid. And These days, there are a few different reimbursement tools around, right? Was that the landscape where you started this?
No, I think at that time it was Refunds Manager, Refund Sniper, and that was really it at that particular time. And Seller Bench, and Gatita wasn't in the game yet. They were just on a little small couch. I think at the second Prosper show that I was at, there were a lot. There's a lot of companies now. I think there's like 50 of them. Overseas companies here, Refund Genie, Magic Money. There's a million different types of reimbursement companies. And that wasn't the landscape back in the day.
Yeah.
Really just four.
So you're one of the OGs in the space, huh?
I think so.
Yeah. And you mentioned Refund Sniper. That's also under the Threecolts umbrella, right? Along with SellerBench, right? So the Threecolts effectively has the founding fathers of the reimbursement space under the umbrella. What would you say that aggregation of businesses does with respect to improving the service offering, improving the service quality?
Awesome question. It's when we went under the hood, so like right after the acquisition, I believe Yoda took all three companies, SellerBench, Refund Sniper, and us, and we all sat in one big room in Manhattan, and we were each calculating reimbursements differently, which means, each one of us had our own calculations. When you brought all the companies together, we were able to dive, I would say, deeper than any other company. We have three different calculations. Each company that signed up for SellerLocker, we were able to run a triple audit, three different ways to uncover as much money as possible. So I would say that's like the coolest benefit that we have, owning all three of those companies.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. I don't imagine that there's anyone else in the market that has that depth and breadth of offering. Tell me a little bit more about what your plans are within the Threecolts ecosystem. What are you trying to achieve in the next, say, 6 months, in the next year? It'd be good to get a sense of how you see the future and your role in it at Threecolts.
Sure. So right now we have, OnSite, which is a very impactful returns management solution. We have partnership with Amazon where we have added this get product support button, which, we all talk about, that redirects customers away from returning products to a landing page to stop returns. Until I dove into it, just like reimbursements, I didn't know the impact of one return. A return can eat up 3, if not 5 sales. Implementing a return solution was never something that brands had the ability to do. And it could add between 10 and 20% more profits per year. So like right now, we're just focused on getting out that message. It's a new concept, being able to stop returns on Amazon. So we're just focused on exposure. Less so, the tech's already all built out. Everything's ready. Just how can we get this in front of every single Amazon seller that can potentially use it and wants to save profits? It's a no-brainer for anybody who doesn't want to get product support button right next to the return button on Amazon. So we're just focused on exposure. I'm surprised it didn't go viral on LinkedIn yet, but it should. And we're going to every single show that we can, trying to scream from the rooftops about this yellow button, which is extremely powerful.
Solid. Well, this has been a very inspiring conversation. I'm going to look for a problem and start another business around it. What would you say, or what would you give as a piece of advice for someone looking to take the plunge, right? They've identified an area of need. They've identified why they're a good person to solve that problem, but they're missing that extra step to get going, right? What kind of advice would you give to them?
So obviously, when the money starts coming in, that starts getting you very hungry. I think a lot of entrepreneurs try to build the perfect product first and then go to market, and they end up either missing the window of opportunity or run out of funds and time to go ahead and build that solution. So I'm a big believer in, an MVP. Build an MVP, minimum viable product. Show it to your friends, show it to your market. Make sure you really have a market for this and get them to pay for it. If you can read not, they would maybe pay for it if it had X, Y, and Z feature. Build something that someone will actually give you $200-$300 for per month. And if you can do that, now, okay, great. You get your investors or you get your loan, and then you focus back on product development. If you don't really have something that somebody's willing to buy, then don't waste your time on it. But if you can build an MVP and you can get a few friends to pay you for it, that you have your motivation. You already have the money in your pocket and you have a good idea. Now it's just about putting more time into it.
Solid. And you are in a unique position where you've had an exit, right? You've managed to sell your business on. What kind of advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who have managed to grow their businesses and are now looking or are being approached by potential acquirers? What kind of advice would you give them on that process?
I mean, try to make it as profitable as possible before selling it. That'll give you a little bit more bang in your pocket. But I think if you can also try, even from now, to find, it depends what you're looking to do, but if you're really looking to step away from the business, you have to prepare for that. Or else it's extremely stressful to sell the business and then you're still stuck to it. So you never actually are able to replace yourself. Start replacing yourself even before. It makes the business even more valuable because you're able to take yourself out of the finances and your EBITDA goes up for sure. But if you can remove yourself from the business in ways from now, it makes the acquisition a lot more attractive.
Attractful. We'll take attractful from you. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Joe. Thank you for sharing your journey and your contribution to Threecolts, building the world's most comprehensive marketplace management platform. I believe this conversation will be very inspiring to other founders who would want to also look to join us on this journey of building something really impressive, something really novel. So once again, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.